Hi, and welcome to Chapter 1. This week's Chapter 1 is Haunts, Hikes, and Havoc. Chapter 1. People say that if you drive through the Nada Tunnel at night and don't honk your horn, the Green Lady would follow you home. I didn't know if I believed in ghosts, but I had met enough people around these parts who claimed to have seen one. So just in case, I keep my windows rolled up and my radio off when I pass through. And tonight, standing under the pavilion at Happy Trails Campground and trying to get a possessed projector to behave while the wind whispered through the Daniel Boone National Forest as though it had secrets to tell, I couldn't help but feel watched. Maybe it was by Dottie Swaggart. But then again, it was fall and all those eerie sounds were magnifying this time of the year. Did he arrive yet? Mary Elizabeth Mowerly's voice, containing a mix of nerves and hope, buzzed through the phone as I held it against my ear. Not yet, I said, shifting the phone to my shoulder and jabbing at the stubborn projector remote. In the distance, tree branches creaked like old bones, and a slow crackle of leaves whispered along the gravel path of the Red Fox Trail. That kind of sound normally meant a raccoon was rustling around in trash bins, or perhaps something else was keeping an eye on us from the tree line. Here, Dottie Swaggart's flip-flops slapped against the concrete as she marched over and yanked the remote from my hands. You go talk to your mama. I can't concentrate with all your poking and prodding. Bets Hager, one of our best friends, snickered from the opposite side of the pavilion. The pavilion was part of the recreational center, though most folks just called it the covered part. Fine, I muttered, and keep your voices down, I told him. No, now go stand over there and channel your good energy or whatever you do. I've got this, Dottie snapped. Bets, leave them chairs and come over here and take a look at this. Bets, along with the rest of our group, the Laundry Club ladies, had graciously offered to come help us at Happy Trails Campground for the opening reception of Haunts and the Hikes Festival. She stepped across the pavilion, her boots crunching on scattered leaves. Bets had her chin-length wavy brown hair tucked into a soft maroon beanie. The blunt bangs that usually framed her face were now brushed out of her eyes. Those big brown eyes were sparkling with excitement, and her lightweight, burnt orange quilted vest gave her a cozy, ready-for-fall look that somehow still made her look effortlessly stylish. The chunky oatmeal-colored sweater peeked out from underneath, and her sleeves pushed up to her elbow as she carried folding chairs as though it was no big thing. I caught her grinning as she leaned in to inspect the projector Dottie had decided to dominate. Tonight's event wasn't just any opening reception. In fact, Mary Elizabeth, my foster adopted mama, had been trying to be more involved with the Lady of the Elks who were hosting this year's festival. I didn't know who she had to bribe, but she ended up scoring Ken Treadwell, the biggest paranormal investigator in the country. He and his crews weren't just headlining the festival. They were staying at Happy Trails and were going to film an episode of Paranormal Happenings, Ken's national television show at the campground. What's all that fussing about now? Mary Elizabeth huffed. Is that about to ruin Ken's big arrival? Do I need to come over there? I made bourbon pecan pie for tomorrow's reception, but if I need to use it as a peace offering, I will. No need to bribe him with baked goods, I said, stepping out from under the awning into the crisp air. I left plenty of goodies in the cabin from the cookie crumble and Trails coffee for him to enjoy this evening. The campground was alive with sounds as branches swayed against each other, pine needles shivering under the breeze, and from somewhere deeper in the woods came that low, long howl that might have been a coyote or maybe something entirely different. Dottie's just mad that the projector won't cooperate. We're going to run a loop of Ken's ghost hunting show from years ago when he first came to see the Green Lady. Hank set it up, but apparently the spirits have other plans, I teased, getting into the spirit. That's a brilliant idea, Mary Elizabeth said, instantly soothed. This is my first time chairing the ladies of the Elks Holiday Committee, and I cannot screw this up. You won't, I promise. You could throw a haunted hayride in a downpour and still have perfect hair and a hot chocolate bar, I laughed. Well, her voice lifted with pride, Ken is the paranormal investigator of the year, and folks have been whispering about ghost lights and strange sounds out of the gorge for years now, which make it so special that he's going to focus on the Green Lady. We are very lucky, Maybelline, very lucky that he agreed to be the guest of honor this year for the festival, and that he's going to take on the Green Lady. Her voice ticked up with excitement. She didn't have to say any more. I already knew the story. Everyone around here did. The Nada Tunnel in the Red River Gorge was just up the road off of Route 77. It was as eerie as it was beautiful. It was 900 feet of pitch black rock carved by hand in the early 1900s for a lumber train that never quite seemed to leave. There were no lights inside, and if you didn't honk before entering, the locals swore the Green Lady would follow you home. Legend had it as that she was the spirit climber of someone who died near the tunnel. People claim to have seen a soft green glow drifting through the trees or a full silhouette of a woman in a long dress vanishing just before the tunnel's mouth. For years, there had been reports of shadowy figures on the trail behind the haunted cabin ruins near Gray's Arch. Mysterious footprints started in the middle of the path and vanished without a trace. And one camper swore she saw a woman in a green dress walking into the tunnel, only to disappear before she came out the other side. Even I had gotten the chills driving through the Nada Tunnel, and I wasn't the type to get spooked easy. Well, if the Green Lady's hanging around, I said, then I lowered my voice and eyeing the tree line, I sure hope she's got a ticket for tomorrow night's ghost walk. That would make us even more lucky, Mary Elizabeth squealed before I heard Don Gentry on her end of the line calling out for her. I've got to go. Call me when he gets there. Dag nabbit, Dottie barked, stepping back from the projector as though it had personally offended her. Betts had even taken a stab at it. I'm about to call Henry over here. He knows how to speak machine. Don't drag Henry over here, I said. He's busy with Queenie getting that tiki hut ready. Through the trees near the Red Fox Trail, I could already see the glow of the orange twinkle light strung from the thatched roof of the tiki hut. Fall garland in fiery reds and rust were wrapped around the post, and a pair of floppy scarecrows leaned against the corner as if they were eavesdropping. Bundles of dried cornstalk framed the front, and little lantern lights dangled from the roof edge, bobbing in the soft breeze. Henry had outdone himself this year. He scattered hay bales and wooden crates around as a makeshift seating, and long folding tables had been dressed up in burlap with plaid runners to tie in with the rest of the campground's autumn flair. He's piddling, Dottie snapped, pulling her leather cigarette case from the depths of her bra. He helped Hank set this up, and he needs to help get it going. She grumbled as she flicked her lighter. The orange flame flared, casting a burst of light across her face and setting her rhinestone tea aglow like a disco ball. I'll go help with Queenie, Betts said, and walked over to the tiki hut. I spotted Queenie fluffing her short blonde hair with her fingers, her bright pink headband already sliding down her forehead as though it was trying to give up for the day. Her slick black leggings shimmered under the twinkle lights, and her electric blue tank top said Squat Squad written in glitter across the front. She blinked slowly, then tilted her head with one of those big, overly bright smiles and made it impossible to tell whether she was delighted or about to fake an admiration through her clenched teeth. Her right brow arched as she bent to adjust a crate by the drink table. Then she snapped back upright and gestured to Henry as though he was conducting a symphony. Dottie took a long puff and huffed. If this thing ain't gonna work this time, I swear I'm gonna roll this projector right into the lake myself. Henry must have heard her because he dropped whatever it is that he was doing and started walking slowly over to us. Come on, Dottie motioned for him. Stop him hauling around. We ain't got time for that. I watched Henry then I took a moment to look around and listen for the sounds of the campground, the whispers of the wind through the trees, folded back in around me. I heard the slam of the camper door and glanced across the campground. Happy Trails wasn't just a patch of gravel and trees tucked inside the Daniel Boone Forest. It was a living, breathing postcard, the kind of place that made you pull your car over just to take in the view and then cancel your plan for like the next 3 weeks so you could stay a while. The entrance was marked by a lopsided wooden archway that read Happy Trails Campground in faded white paint. Hank had once offered to rebuild a new one, but the truth was that old sign had seen more second chances than most people ever get. It creaked in the wind, weathered by time and memories, and now I could not imagine the place without it. The gravel road wound up into the forest, crunching under your tires as though it had secrets to share. Each twist brought the scent of sweet gum and hickory, earthy and grounding, until suddenly you just passed a cluster of sugar woods. You break through the trees and enter a wide, sunlit clearing. There, in the heart of the campground, a peaceful lake mirrored the sky, the fall colored canopy surrounding it like something out of a jigsaw puzzle box. The main road the main road looped around the campground in slow circles, giving every camper a front row seat to Kentucky's natural beauty. Concrete paths curved neatly along the shoreline with grassy pockets in between, each with a fire ring stacked with wood and enough space for lawn chairs, string lights, and a dog or two. Ducks waddled along the water's edge, and if you look closely, you might spot a red fox slipping between the trees near that back trail. Full hookups at every lot meant no one was roughing it unless you wanted to. For guests without RVs, we had a handful of rentable campers, including my old Winnebago with its lemon-colored pop-up top. The bungalows nestled deeper into the trees, offered just enough luxury for bridal parties and girls' getaways and modern heat and charm to spare. Tent campers had their own little stretch tucked off to the left where the trees grew thick and quiet just like they liked it. The buildings were simple, but they were full of character. The old brick office sat just past the entrance with a single rocking chair out front and a constant stream of locals dropping off flyers or snack. The recreation center, our social hub, was always humming with something like puzzle tournaments, game board night, campfire sing-alongs, and rainy day ping pong battles that got fiery sometimes. During the day, kids splashed near the sandy beach or chased paddle boats shaped like swans, while hikers strapped on boots and headed towards the Red Fox Trail. That one was a favorite with its modern climb and breathtaking views. And if Alvin Dieters had his way, everyone would sign up for one of his kayak lessons along the river bend nearby. The forest was alive and breathing, especially this time of the year, as it would just take its last breath before heading into a dormant winter. We had red maples, sugar maples, hickories, and poplars blazed in every direction. Their canopy of riots of crimson, amber, gold, and plum filled the space. The air held that unmistakable crispness laced with wood smoke, mulled cider, and the faint perfume of the crushed leaves underfoot. The hay bales and pumpkins line the walkway right now with cheerful fall flags waving in the breeze and mums blooming as if they were in their own beauty pageant. But more than all that, more than the scenery and the hiking, it was the people that made Happy Trails feel like home. Every month, I hosted a progressive campfire supper where folks wandered from site to site, swapping cornbread recipes and ghost stories with strangers who became friends. We were excited to be offering another fun supper in a couple of days when Ken Treadwell would tell us ghost stories around the communal campfire. Campfires at Happy Trail were extra special too, because at night there were no street lights to compete with. The stars came out in full chorus, shimmering over the lake as if they had been waiting for their moment in the spotlight all day. You'd hear the crackle of fires and the twang of a distant guitar, and maybe, just maybe, the soft cry of a barn owl perched up in one of the oaks, watching it all. Happy Trails wasn't just a place to park your camper. It was a slice of peace where your phone stayed in your glove box and your soul got a chance to stretch its legs out. And this time of the year was even more special with the campground dressed in full fall charm with rustic wagon wheels leaning against the hay bales, stacks of orange and white pumpkins lining the main walkway, and mums in every color blooming beside strings of the twinkle lights looped from one lamppost to the next. The scene was pure postcard-worthy Kentucky. That was what made the Haunts and Hikes Festival special, not only to Mary Elizabeth, but to the local economy as well. And if Ken Treadwell didn't show up soon with his EMF monitors and infrared goggles, he might miss the biggest paranormal party the forest had seen in years. "Henry, I'm so sorry to bug you," I told him as he came trudging up, his ball cap already in hand with the southern gentleman he was. A cool breeze rustled with the orange tin maple leaves overhead, sending a few spinning to the ground like confetti. Dottie, of course, was in mid-rant. I still say we shouldn't mess with this full projector, she fussed. Used to be folks come to the Daniel Boone to get away from television, not to bring the whole home theater with them. Henry didn't miss a beat. Then why don't I go yank your TV cord out of the wall and haul that contraption off for you? He asked with a slow grin, his two missing front teeth making his smile even warmer. Heck, I'll even throw in that big cushy chair you love so much. Now you hush, Henry Bryant, Dottie turned to him, clutching the remote as if it might fly off on its own. You know good and well that this is my rest and recovering chair. Rest and recovering from what? He teased. You ain't moved off it since Monday except to meet Queenie for a slice of Ty Randall's pumpkin pie down at the normal diner. That earned him a swat with a rolled up program in her hand, and she muttered, You're cruising for a bruising. I had to fight back a laugh. Henry and Dottie bickered as if they were an Olympic sport. One, I secretly suspect, that was just their version of flirting. Hank had to work the desk shift, I said, trying to rein things back in. You know, making sure the trails are all passable for Ken's summonings of the Green Lady, or did I have to, or I'd have to look at him, or I'd have to have him look at this, I added, a little ghostly trill to my voice. Henry's raised an eyebrow. He's patrolling or ghost hunting? Henry asked, already crouched under the projector, pulling a mini flashlight from his belt as though it wasn't his first tech rodeo, and it wasn't. A little of both, I admitted. He said he wanted to make sure that the Gray's Arch path near the tunnel was clear. But honestly, I think he just wanted an excuse to walk around the Red River Gorge with a thermos of coffee and call it official business. Shoot, Henry said with a chuckle. I can't blame him. This is prime season for spooks and leaf peeping, and that tunnel. He paused. The beam of his flashlight glittered off the projector side. Place always gives me the willies. Something about the way the sounds die when you walk through it. Dottie crossed her arms and huffed and muttered something like, overhyped tourist trap. Have you ever seen the green light? I asked, half teasing. Henry gave a shrug and a little shake of his head. Can't say I have, but also I ain't ever dumb enough to go through that tunnel without honking first. I ain't trying to get followed home. Dottie rolled her eyes so hard I thought they might get stuck. Henry popped the side open of the panel and clicked something. The projector blinked to life, the low whirl. Well, look at that, I said. You're a genius. Henry shrugged. Just takes a little finesse and a gentle tap or pushing the on button. We all started to laugh because none of us had thought about actually turning on the projector's button. Dottie lit a fresh cigarette and exhaled toward the trees. That thing better behave. I got better things to do than babysit some fancy ghost man's tech problems. Henry looked at me with a twinkle. You want me to stay a minute and make sure it don't go all green lady on you? He laughed. Oh, you'd be my hero, I said, and I meant it. I am a hero, he said, brushing his hands on his jeans with a wink. Just one who happens to be paid to put up with the two of you. He clicked around for a while and got the projector all hooked up to the campground's laptop, where I'd purchased a few seasons of Paranormal Happenings, Ken's show. A few more campers who were here just to meet Ken himself ambled up the gravel path toward the pavilion, coffee mugs in hand and curiosity written plain on their face. They were drawn in by the flickering glow of the projection screen and the promise of something unusual like ghosts or maybe just a little gossip. Dottie fanned the smoke from her latest cigarette as though she were swatting away bugs. We turned our attention to the screen just as Ken Treadwell's face appeared, serious and dramatic as ever, his voice dipping into a theatrical whisper while eerie music played underneath. Here at Gray's Arch, nestled in the wild heart of Kentucky's Red River Gorge, he atoned, we've uncovered evidence of supernatural again. Again, Henry muttered with a snort. This man finds ghosts in more places than ants find sugar. Well, I mean, he does sell it well, I said, mostly to myself, watching as the camera panned over the mouth of the knotted tunnel lit with the green filters and fog, I'm sure for spooky effect. Behind us, the folding chairs were filling up fast, folks clustering under the pavilion as if we were running a drive-in theater. Mary Elizabeth would be thrilled. Well, if he doesn't show up soon, we're going to run out of season 1 before he gets a chance to spook anybody in person, I said, half laughing and half wishing he had already appeared. It wasn't just the crowd that needed him, it was the fundraiser. Mary Elizabeth had poured her heart into the Haunts and Hikes event. The idea had been hers from the get go, and Ken was supposed to be the crown jewel. And all the proceeds, at least whatever was left after paying Ken's ghost hunting fee, were going to the Boys and Girls Club of Kentucky. She'd picked the group herself, and after raising more foster kids than I could count, she always leaned toward anything that gave kids a safe place to land. And if Ken didn't show up soon, we were going to have more questions than RSVPs. He can hold a seance and call in his old fashioned way, Dottie chimed in with a smirk, just as the projector flickered. Or not. Maybe the green lady's messing with our signal. We both jerked around at the sound of gravel spitting up under tires near the campground. Finally, I exhaled in relief, only for it to catch halfway when headlights cut through the trees and I spotted a familiar SUV pulling in. Oh, that's Ellis, I said, squinting through the glow. But she's got the food. Sure enough, the vehicle rode to a stop and the driver's side window zipped down. I know, Ellis called out, waving her perfectly manicured hand. I'm late. Don't yell. The boys are fussing. And then Carter threw his bottle at the cat, and Colton decided he didn't want on pants. Her blonde hair was swept up into a high, fluff ponytail, long extension curled down over her shoulder. Her bangs were slightly damp with sweat or maybe stress or both. Despite the chaos, she looked as if she'd still stepped out of a catalog shoot for the Glam Mom Fall Edition, with her rosy cheeks, her bright white smile, and those lashes so long they could cast shadows when she blinked. She threw the SUV in parked and popped her rear hatch. Mugs and ministry is tomorrow morning, she huffed, climbing out in her tall taupe suede boots as though she had just wrangled those 2 months old. I'd been up to my eyebrows in glitter glue and Bible verse bookmarks for the week. And don't get me started on the pews. I'm still scrubbing sticky bits from last Saturday's fall camp. Bless Ty Randall, I said, already heading around to the back. Tell him thank you for the sandwiches. He said, and I quote, if anyone complains about the lack of mayo, they can just slap some on themselves next time. Ellis gave me a pointed look and handed off a heavy tray of foil. We've got pimento cheese, egg salad, and turkey, and they're all labeled with a Sharpie. The rear door swung open wilder as she leaned in, and that was when I heard the gurgling giggles and soft babbles. 2 matching car seats sat snug in the back row. Colton and Carter were all dimples and messy blonde curls. Their wide blue eyes locked in on me as their little fists waved around as though they had something urgent to say. Well, there's my 2 sweet nephews, I cooed, reaching in and wiggling my fingers at them. Look at you 2. You've got your mama's good looks and your daddy's energy. Colton let out a shriek of joy while Carter shouted something that might have said May or milk. I don't know. Either way, I'm going to take it that he said May. Ellis grinned proudly. They've been practicing this all week, she said. Then she leaned forward and with an exaggerated cheer, trick or treat. Come on, say it. Trick or treat. And the boys clapped like it was the best game in the world. Then immediately grabbed each other's hands and started in a full-blown baby tug of war in their own car seats, giggling and squealing and kicking their feet as though they were hosting their own Halloween showdown. I'll take this tray in, I said, giving each baby a little wave before turning back towards the pavilion. Maybe if folks have something to eat, they'll forget that Ken is fashionably late. Fashionably, Dottie scoffed, grabbing another tray. Honey, he's 2 ghost sightings and a full moon past late. I gave her a look. Just saying, she added. You know how folks get when their stomachs outrun their manners? She wasn't wrong. We carried the food under the pavilion where the projector flickered on the pulled down screen. A few campers hoovered near the long tables, drawn by the smells, or maybe just hoping something spooky would finally start happening. Let's get these out, I said, straightening the burlap runner. There's a couple more trays up front, Ellis said, pointing towards the SUV. Dottie and I followed her back out, the leaves crunching under our feet as the air thickened with the smell of the roast turkey, the cheddar, and some hint of tangy relish. As we reached the SUV, Ellis handed Dottie the last of the trays, her fake lashes fluttering as she blinked down at the foil. Still warm, Ty did good. The minute Dottie opened her mouth again, a low rumble rolled over the trees, then another. Gravel popped up under tires as a caravan of vehicles rounded the bend, headlights gleaming in the fading gold of early evening. Each van and SUV was wrapped in vinyl decals that screamed paranormal happenings with glowing green fonts spooky shadow and Ken Treadwell's face plastered big and bold across the second vehicle while in silhouette, half in smirk. You deal with the Ghostbusters. I'll wrangle the babies and the pimento cheese, Ellis said. I tugged on the hem of my long sleeve Happy Trail shirt and tucked one of my wayward curls behind my ear. It was showtime. It's about time, Dottie hollered, hands on her hips before the last car even stopped moving. Dottie, I hissed through a tight-lipped smile as I waved to the crew. They're her guests. They're late, as in real late, she drawled, dragging the syllables out like honey down a fence post. She gave me a sidelong glance and snickered. I know. If you ain't got nothing nice to say, come sit by me. I rolled my eyes. The car doors springed open like a circus wagon. People spilled out, all in matching khakis and branded polos. Boxes, lights, and fancy-looking camera equipment were shuffled and juggled in a flurry of movement that clashed with the peaceful hush of the woods around us. The Daniel Boone National Forest rose up in the distance behind them, fiery with reds, oranges, and golds and peaks of fall foliage. The leaves fluttered like confetti in the breeze. The thick oaks and maple whispered over the sound of the car doors and the muffled shouting like they knew they were on display. Then a woman in a long sleeve brown jumpsuit stepped out of the front passenger seat of Ken Treadwell's car, her boots clicking sharply against the gravel. Who is Dottie? She asked, her eyes narrowing between me and Dottie. Her, Dottie said, pointing to me. I am not, I said with a nervous laugh. I'm Dottie West, and I'm Mae West, and this is Dottie Swaggart. Oh, Dottie, the woman gasped as she hurried over, the rest of the crew trailing behind her like ducklings. You've already made this trip so much fun. We cannot wait to see everything you'll be doing while we're here. Dottie's red curls bobbed as she gave a toothy grin. Yes, I'm Dottie, she nudged me in the ribs. Can't wait for y'all to see it too. Right, Maybelline? Right, I said, forcing a smile, and we both knew exactly what had happened. Mary Elizabeth had been using Dottie's old laptop at the milkery office since her own email had been frozen during a software update. All communication with Ken's people, from the lodging to the hike schedule to the special drive through the Nada Tunnel, had gone through Dottie's manager's email. I am the manager of this here fine establishment, Dottie gestured boldly with a sudden authority like she had earned it. Maybelline here, she motioned to me. She's the owner and handled all the in-person hosting. The woman looked at me over her rim of her glasses, unconvinced. That's right, I jumped in quickly. Dottie handles all the guest coordinations ahead of time, and I make sure everything goes smoothly once y'all arrive. You must be Dina. Dina Treadwell, she said proudly. She ignored my offered handshake and clapped her hands instead. I dropped my hand and smoothed it down my leg of my jeans. I'm Ken's wife and manager, so I've been the one emailing back and forth with Dottie. Can we speak privately? She turned and walked off, leaving me no room to agree or to refuse. Go on, Dottie said with a wink, already pulling her cigarette case from her bag. I'll have a quick smoke while you two sort this mess out. Why don't you go inside and grab the reservation packets? I told her, my voice still sugar sweet, and help folks find their bungalows. She waved me off and headed to the office, smoke trailing behind her. I followed Dina towards the vehicle, whose windows were tinted so dark I couldn't see whether Ken was inside. I know you mean well. I do, Dina said, placing her manicure hand on my arm. Her perfume was sharp and floral, the kind that lingered in an open area. But honey, I feel more comfortable with Dottie showing us around. Ken is very particular, and we simply cannot afford many mishaps. I was very clear that I didn't want anyone but her with us during our short visit. But there's been a miss, I started to say, but she pressed a finger gently against my lip. But is not how I intend for you to start your next sentence, she said, removing her finger. Just nod, no words, a simple nod. Well, I think you'll find we've had a miscommunication, I said, trying my best to keep my tongue polite while wiping the corner of my mouth with the back of my hand. My palm felt clammy from nerves, and a cool breeze rustled through the gold-tinged dogwoods overhead, tossing a few brittle leaves to our feet. I don't care about any mistake you've made, Dina said sharply, her brows arched high with disapproval. It only proves my point. She clapped her hands again. And as if she'd summoned a genie, a young woman popped out of the vehicle next to us, holding a big, thick folder. Clause 5C, Maggie, Dina snapped. Maggie flipped through the packet so fast her fingers were blurred. I bid farewell to you, miss. Dina paused and blinked clearly, stalling to make a point. West, I said, firm. May West. Dina's lips twitched in amusement. As in the May West? Lordy, if I had a penny for every time someone tossed out that line, I'd have been able to hand Mary Elizabeth a check big enough to sponsor the whole Haunts and Hikes event and feed the ladies of the Elks for a year. Maggie, may I please see that? I reached out with an open hand, hoping that she might hand over the document so I could see whatever was important in the clause 5C. You have a copy, Dina quipped, her voice cutting through the crisp air like a dull butter knife. Or did you lose it? Before I could bite my tongue or her head off, a male voice floated lazily through the vehicle. Is there a problem? He said through the open window. We both turned, and it was Ken Treadwell, leaned halfway out, his signature smirk nowhere to be found. His silver-streaked hair was slightly tousled, and a satin eye mask was pushed up on his forehead, as if we had just disturbed him from a nap he was still trying to have. I'd really like to get some rest before we start, he said, his voice gravelly and impatient, as though we were keeping him from the main event. I heard the sound of leaves crunching underfoot as Henry meandered up from around the corner of the office, his hands in his back pockets and curiously painted plainly across his face. He stopped short when he saw the crowd, and he gave me a sideways look and tipped his cap as if he was walking into a salon instead of a guest kerfuffle. All righty, Dottie said, stepping forward with the clack of her flip-flops and the fresh puff of a cigarette smoke curling around her head like a weather system. She squinted through the haze and clutched the campground clipboard tight to her chest as if the national secrets. With two nicotine-stained fingers, she jabbed her cigarette towards Ken. There was a mistake. There's been a mistake here, and I'm going to tell y'all what it is. Ken tilted his head as though he was watching a particularly good soap opera. Dottie took one dramatic drag before continuing. Mary Elizabeth on the internet went down belly up at the milkery, and she's my account to talk to you fine folk, which is why y'all think I'm the brains behind all this. She gestured to the rec building and to the lake behind her as if it was the Taj Mahal. But the truth is, Maybelline here, she gave me a wink, is the one who'll be taking care of you. Dina looked ready to protest, but Ken raised a hand and cut in with a smile that hit Dottie's square in the ego. I like you, he said, chuckling low as he leaned against the edge of the car door as though he were settling in for story time. Don't suppose you'd mind being our guest while we're here, would you, Miss Dottie? Well, you could have knocked me over with a fall leaf. Dottie beamed as if someone had crowned her Miss Congeniality of the Autumn Jamboree. Ah, well, aren't you the sweetest, she cooed, her red curls bouncing as she giggled. If y'all don't mind the occasional smoke break and brutally honest opinions, I reckon I can manage. From the corner of my eye, I caught Henry stiffening. His easy grin faded as his jaw twitched just once. He shifted his stance, tugged his belt a little tighter, and crossed his arm, his version of sounding a silent alarm. Are you all right? I asked under my breath. Peachy, he muttered. I'd seen that look before. It was the same one he got when someone else would ask Dottie to dance during a festival. Annoyed, aggravated. Oh, don't you worry none, Henry Bryant, Dottie said, not missing a beat as she twirled her cigarette towards him. You're still my favorite mountain man. This here's just business, paranormal business. Henry grunted, but his eyes narrowed a little more as Ken stepped out of the car and offered Dottie his hand as though she were about to escort him to the governor's mansion instead of a tour of a campground. I think I'm going to go check the propane tanks, Henry said to no one in particular, but the way he stomped off told me he wasn't happy with our new guest. Well, then, Dottie said, smoothing a hand down the front of her sparkly tee as if she were brushing off nerves. Not that she had any. She hooked her arm in Ken's as though they were old chums about to promenade at the harvest hoedown. First things first, we've got to meet and greet over here at the recreational building and pavilion. You've got a nice crowd of campers and town folks waiting to say howdy, she told him. Ken opened his mouth as though he was about to ask a question, but Dottie, she barreled on. And before you ask, yes, there's food. May's own brother-in-law, Ty Randall, he used to be a big-time fancy chef out in San Francisco before he came back to town to take over the normal diner from his daddy and even raising his brother since his daddy had that heart attack. Well, and his mama, she died fairly early. But anyway, she threw a hand. He catered the whole dang thing. And let me tell you, we're talking pulled pork sliders, pimento mac bites, and sweet tea that can make a grown man weep. Dina, clearly recognizing that this was a train was running whether she was on it or not, gave a clip nod and waved to the rest of the entourage. Let's go, she ordered. All business, except you, Maggie. You stay back with May and help get everyone situated. I'll take care of the accommodations, Miss West. Maggie gave a polite smile and nodded toward me. Can I have the assignments and the keys for the bungalows, campers, and everything? You won't have to lift a finger. Thank you, Maggie, truly for your kind gesture, I exhaled slowly, some of the tension loosening in my shoulders since she seemed to be sensible. But I'll need to take you around to them. You can leave your cars and your luggage here while I take you in the golf cart. Henry will look after the luggage. She gave me a knowing smile that said she was used to cleaning up behind her boss, and I liked her instantly. Meanwhile, Dottie, still looped into Ken's arm, was halfway across the lawn now, proudly leading him past rows of picnic tables decked in the burnt orange gingham and the mason jar centerpieces stuffed with sunflowers and cacao. The twinkle light strung from the pavilion, beams looked like fireflies in the dimming light, and the scent of spiced cider mingled with hickory smoke from the fire ring. Ken looked equal parts confused and impressed as Dottie gave a grand wave to the crowd already under there waiting for him. Y'all ready to meet the man of the hour? Dottie hollered, her voice cutting through the crisp fall air like the brass bell on a Sunday morning. Well, here he is with me, Dottie swaggered as his personal hostess and ghost guide for the week. If Ken was startled by her enthusiasm, he didn't show it. He smiled and gave a little wave, even though I noticed his eyes kept darting towards the pavilion, all but as if he was looking for an emergency exit just in case. Chapter 1, Haunts, Hikes, and Havoc.